Hello, my friends. I'm going to explain why I think Hillary Clinton was born around 8:30 a.m. We still have no idea of when Hillary was born. There's some strong evidence she was born a little after 2 in the morning. There's also strong evidence around 8 in the morning, also evidence around 8 p.m. There are other times. When I say evidence, it's typically something like Hillary mentioned a time, or her mother, or a friend, etc. So we really don't know what time she's born. I think she's born around 8:30 a.m. And the way that I come up with this time is interesting. It's not the most common way to determine the birth time. The most common way to determine the birth time, or what we call rectification of the chart in astrology, means determine what time the person was born, is using events. You collect events in the person's life, such as accidents, when they win awards, when they fall in love, when they get married, and you see what time the person had to be born in order for the events to happen on those dates. I have a whole other tutorial video on that. That's the most common method. Of course, another way is by the character of the person. Sometimes the person will look at the rising sign, and suppose the rising sign is Scorpio, and they figure, no, it must be Sagittarius, so they figure the person was born a little bit later to have Sagittarius rising. That's just one example of looking at the chart and seeing what the person's like and figuring out from their personality and their behavior what time you think they were probably born. Another way rectification is done is astrolocality. This is good when you know the birth time reasonably well, and you might want to adjust it 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. I don't find astrolocality is helpful if you have no idea what time the person is born, which is really the case with Hillary. We have a bunch of possible different times. But it is good for rectifying when the time is approximately correct, because in the astromaps, the lines move very roughly about 60 miles or 100 kilometers every 4 minutes of time. And if there's certain places that are very important for the person, there always are, like places where they live or places where certain things happen, you can adjust the chart based on that. And what I'm doing in this video is I'm adjusting the chart based on a comparison of Hillary's chart with friends and close associates. So this is not very often done as a way to rectify a chart, but that's what I'm going to show you here. And I'm using vibrational astrology, which means we use a lot of minor aspects and midpoint structures that we think are very important. And I think you're going to find this really amazing. First of all, let's look at the charts of some people in Hillary Clinton's world. Well, one person is her husband, Bill Clinton. When we look at Bill Clinton's chart, we're going to see something interesting in the relationship of Sun and Mars in his chart. And John Fitzgerald Kennedy, former President Kennedy, has a very similar aspect, and John Kennedy's wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, also has a similar relationship of Sun and Mars. Sometimes Moon gets involved with JFK and Jacqueline. The Moon is also involved, and Barak Obama. So these four people have Sun and Mars strong in what we call the ninth harmonic. And what does this mean? It means community action and service. And all of these people are involved in community action and service. It's very common for Democrats in the United States government's system. We have two main parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The Democrats usually have strong ninth harmonic aspect, and we see these people all having strong ninth harmonic aspects, specifically between Sun and Mars, and the similarity is striking. By the way, a problem with ninth harmonic is that it tends to be indulgent, and this is what the Republicans have a concern about, the Democrats being too indulgent, indulging people with too much welfare, for example. So you see that one of the big differences between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is their attitudes towards the ninth harmonic. They don't know that that's what it is, but astrologically, that's how I view it. Now, look at these similarities. This is really amazing. This is John Kennedy's chart, John F. Kennedy's chart. It's an A accuracy, means it's not from birth certificate. It's pretty good time. It's close to being accurate. It's given us 3 p.m. In John Kennedy's chart, he has Moon trine Mars. So here's Mars at 18 Taurus, Moon at 17 Virgo. They are trine. And the exact angle between Moon and Mars happens to be 118 degrees, 47 minutes, which means it's a trine aspect with a little over a degree orb. Fine. All astrologers are familiar with this and comfortable with the idea that Moon and Mars are trine. What's not used as often is that his Sun happens to be about 20 degrees from Mars and 100 degrees from Moon. And I've got these little curved lines here and a line pointing out to demonstrate that. Okay, so you got the idea? We don't usually care about this, but in vibrational astrology we consider it to be very important that the Sun is 20 degrees from Mars and 100 degrees from the Moon. So it's in essence taking this 120 degrees, approximately 120 degrees, and dividing it into 20 degrees and 100. And 100 plus 20 equals the 120, rounded off. This creates a very powerful pattern in what we call the 9th harmonic chart. This is the 9th harmonic chart of John F. Kennedy. And here's the Sun opposition Moon and Mars. So you see these red lines going to the Moon and Mars, and here are the Moon and Mars separated by 11 degrees. So there's a Sun, Moon, Mars pattern. What the 9th harmonic is showing is any two planets in a 9 beat are conjunct. And if they're in an 18 beat, on the off beat, they become opposition. So going back to his natal chart, this 1/3 aspect, the trine, is also 3/9. So if you had a beat like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Moon and Mars are coming on the beat. And the Sun, being 20 degrees from Mars, that's 1/18 of a circle, is on the off beat. It's like a half note. So in a 9 beat, these are whole notes between Moon and Mars, and the Sun Mars and the Sun Moon are half beats. Well, regardless of whether you follow what I'm explaining there, you can just think of it like this. In the 9th harmonic chart, he has Sun opposition Moon and Mars. Now, let's look at Jacqueline Kennedy, his wife's chart. She has Moon 140 degrees approximately. It's actually 139 degrees, 13 minutes. 140. It's a multiple of 20. Here's a simple way to think of it. All of these angles are a multiple of 20 degrees. So in Jacqueline Kennedy's chart, Sun, Moon, and Mars are all in angular distances that are multiples of 20. 20 times 5 is 100. So her Sun Moon is 100 degrees. Her Sun Mars is 40 degrees. And the Moon Mars is 140 degrees. So what we have with Jacqueline is we have 100 plus 40 equals 140. And going back to JFK, we have 100 plus 20 equals 120. Notice it's the same planets, Sun, Moon, and Mars. And in Jacqueline's chart, it's Sun, Moon, and Mars. So my point is this: they are very, very similar patterns. That Sun, Moon, and Mars are all multiples of 20 degrees. And when you look at it in the 9th harmonic chart, you see Moon opposite Sun and Mars. So this is one reason why harmonic charts are so wonderful, is that we can easily see the pattern. We can also see what the orbs are very clearly. The orbs are always 16 degrees for conjunctions and 8 degrees for oppositions in any harmonic chart. So we can look at this Sun-Mars, orb is 3 degrees, so it's very strong. The Moon at 20 degrees is making a weak opposition to Mars and a more solid opposition to the Sun, because the Sun-Moon is a 4-degree orb and the Moon-Mars 20 minus 13 is 7 degrees. And there's a thin line. The thickness of the line shows the strength. And Saturn's also involved. So just ignoring Saturn for the moment, they both have a Sun, Moon, Mars pattern in the ninth harmonic. Now these are things you will never see unless you're looking at these minor aspects, these aspects based on 9, and they show up in the ninth harmonic chart. Now, when we look at Bill Clinton's chart, we see that Sun and Mars are 40 degrees apart. More specifically, 40 degrees 21 minutes. So Bill Clinton also has Sun and Mars in a multiple of 20 degrees. So what we have is Bill Clinton and Jacqueline Kennedy both have a Sun-Mars angle of exactly 40 degrees. And JFK has a Sun-Mars angle of 20 degrees. Let's look at it again. Here's Sun and Mars in Bill Clinton's chart. 40 degrees. Actually, a little more than 40 degrees. Let's go back to Jacqueline Kennedy's natal chart. Here, the Sun and Mars, 40 degrees. A little bit less than 40. Let's go back to JFK's natal chart. Sun and Mars, 20 degrees. Actually, a little bit less than 20 degrees. And is this orb small enough to be important? Well, that's what the harmonic chart shows us. We see that the Sun and Mars are opposition with about a 5-degree orb. A little bit, let's see, 10, if I add 5 to the Sun, I get 15 and a half. Slightly more than 5-degree orb. We allow an 8-degree orb, so it's not strong, but it's there. So John Kennedy has a Sun, Moon, Mars in the ninth harmonic chart. Jacqueline Kennedy has a Sun, Moon, Mars in the ninth harmonic chart. Bill Clinton, there's his Sun, Mars, 40 degrees. Moon is not involved. So what we have is Bill Clinton doesn't have the Moon involved, but he has a very strong Sun, Mars, 1/9 with only a 21-minute orb. Now here's another interesting thing. Bill Clinton and JFK have a connection. They shook hands in 1963 when JFK was president and Bill Clinton was a very young man. I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to play about 1 minute, a little slightly over 1 minute of this video so you can watch this. Okay, let's go ahead and just watch this video. I'm going to play a little bit over a minute of this video.
Sort of muscled my way up and made sure I got to shake hands with the president. He was quite generous. He went down the line and shook hands with a pretty good number of us who were there that day. It had a very profound impact on me. I think that, you know, it's something that I carried with me always, and I was very fortunate that someone took a picture of it and gave it to me, so I was always able to remember it.
Right after that frame, the famous frame of him shaking hands with JFK, there's another picture from the same film showing President Kennedy shaking hands with Jeff Keyes, another one of our boys, him from Florida, and Bill Clinton looking down at his hand with this wonderful look like I'll never wash it again.
I remember President Clinton turning around, then Bill Clinton, and telling all of us that someday he was going to have President Kennedy's job, that someday he was going to be President of the United States. And I remember saying, sure, I'm going to be Pope, and I'm not even Catholic.
I mean, who would have thought, who would have thunk back then, your roommate's going to be President of the United States? I mean, there was no latent sign that this guy was going to, he wanted to be in public service of some kind, but the presidency, that's the brass ring.
Okay. So the connection of Bill Clinton with JFK, he shakes hands, and Bill Clinton has a sense that he will be president someday. And they're looking down at his hands, and the guy saying he may never wash his hand again. These connections, you can actually see them astrologically. And the guy says, we knew that Bill Clinton would be in public service, but give me a break. President? You know, the guy who's not even Catholic says, yeah, and I'm going to be Pope. But that strong Sun Mars, that is that drive for public service. So no matter what you think of Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, who all have this Sun Mars energy, and also JFK and JFK's wife, all have this Sun Mars ninth harmonic energy, whatever other problems, mistakes, issues that go on because people are complicated, they do have this drive for public service, Sun, Mars, and ninth harmonic. And you see the connection between the people through this. Okay, so let's go back to my PowerPoint. And here's Obama. This is really, this is incredible. Obama has Sun and Mars 40 degrees apart. In fact, in Obama's case, it's only a 2-minute orb. The exact Sun-Mars. Again, the moon is not involved. So what happens with every one of these people? Who have we done so far? JFK, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. They all have Sun and Mars in these multiples of 20 degrees. Several of them have the Sun-Mars, specifically 40 degrees, which is interesting. And it's either very strong, it's very strong. In other words, the orb is small, as in the case for Obama and Clinton. They both have Sun-Mars in a strong, we call that a 1/9 aspect, 1/9 of the circle. And in the case of JFK and Jacqueline Kennedy, they have a little bit weaker Sun-Mars, but it combines with the moon. So you see this very, very similar theme going on. So what we expect, given that Hillary is hoping to carry on the legacy of Barack Obama. I'm making this video 1 week before the election in the year 2016. I'm making this on November 1st. The election is a week from today on November 8th, and either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump will become president. So Hillary is hoping to become president and very clearly carry on the legacy of Barack Obama. And married to Bill Clinton, we expect that she is going to have some kind of Sun-Mars 9th harmonic as well, or Sun-Moon-Mars perhaps. Very, very likely she's also driven to do community service. Okay, this just repeats what I just said. Let's move on here. And here's Hillary Clinton's chart for 8:40 a.m. And at 8:40 a.m., her Sun and Mars are 78 degrees 19 minutes apart. Now that's almost a 2-degree orb. Is that orb too big to be considered a multiple of 40, in other words, to be 80 degrees? The way we can tell is by going to the 9th harmonic chart. Okay, I don't have her. I have her 9th harmonic chart here in the background. This is Hillary Rodham Clinton's 9th harmonic chart for the time of 8:40 a.m. And there's Sun and Mars with a very, very thin line. There's also a dashed line over here that's between two other things, but a very, very thin line between Sun and Mars, and they are 15 degrees, slightly over 15 degree orb, very weak. We allow a 16-degree orb. So she doesn't really have the Sun-Mars. It's very weak. And that's why I think her moon must be involved with the Sun and Mars, as it is with JFK and Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. So my rectification is based on the idea that probably Hillary has something very similar to all of these other people, and at 8:30 a.m. or 8:40 a.m. is the time I have here, 8:40 a.m., the moon is exactly opposition the Sun-Mars midpoint and has opposition the Sun-Mars midpoint in the 9th harmonic chart, and weakly opposition, just slightly less than the 8-degree orb. So the combination of the moon being right in between them, because we do use midpoints in harmonic charts in this system we call vibrational astrology, gives her a Sun-Moon-Mars kind of energy. Now, I can go to the time adjust feature. I'm in the Sirius 2.0 software. The Kepler 8 software, by the way, has the same exact feature. So if you have Kepler, you can use this time adjust as well. And we will go 2 hours earlier. I'm adjusting her 9th harmonic chart. So you can time adjust almost any chart, and I'm going to time adjust the 9th harmonic chart to go 2 hours earlier. And 2 hours earlier, the moon is back at 19 Capricorn, aspecting the sun, but not aspecting the moon. And if I go 4 hours later, which would be 10:40 a.m., now I'm 2 hours after she's born, the moon is at 8 Aquarius, opposition Mars, very strong, but starting to separate. So my point is, let me cancel out of this time adjust, is that at 8:40 a.m., the moon is right in the middle of the sun Mars. 2 hours earlier, the moon is back opposition the sun, but not aspecting Mars. 2 hours later, at 10:40 a.m., the moon is moved ahead to be opposition Mars, out of orb to the sun. And I'm expecting the moon to aspect at least one of these planets, and I'm even more likely aspects both of them, which puts it somewhere around 8:40 a.m. So I believe she's very likely born between 6:30 and 10:30 a.m. and most likely around 8:30 a.m. I'd be very surprised if she's born, say, before, outside of a 6-hour time range, before 5:30 or after 11:30 in the morning. And this contradicts some of the new evidence from some researchers that she was born around 2 a.m. But that's what I suspect. Am I absolutely sure of this? No, I'm not completely absolutely sure, but it's I would say 75, 80, maybe 85% likelihood, based on doing this with other charts, it usually is correct. I've rectified charts doing similar things in the past, and it's usually correct. So that's the idea. People form relationships for reasons. There's connections, there's magic, there's chemistry that makes these connections. This connection between Bill Clinton and JFK is not just some random sort of thing or just based on some similarity of interest. There's magic there, and people sense that. Bill Clinton looking down at his hands is like the guy said, he won't wash his hands for another day or something. You have this sense of something important. Something is ignited in Clinton. He feels like, I'll be the next, I'll be a president. I'll be in JFK's shoes some days. He feels that, that's in the stars, you might say. It's in the way that we are wired and the way that we are reflecting and part of a fractal relationship of these patternings in our solar system. So that's the basic idea. Let's see what else I have here. So I showed you the time adjust feature. Now, here's another thought about this. What if Hillary was born at 11 p.m.? That would make the Sun-Mars aspect even stronger. Let me show it to you in her natal chart. Going back to Hillary's natal chart, the Sun-Mars angle, here's the Sun and Mars. They're 78 degrees apart. I can also show it to you in my PowerPoint where I've got the diagram of it. That'll make it easier. So here it is, showing the 78 degrees 19 minutes. Well, the Mars is slower than the Sun, which means later in the day, the Sun will get closer to being the 80 degrees. So maybe Hillary was actually born at near midnight, and that would give her the Sun-Mars in a multiple of 40 degrees. It would be a 2/9 aspect, 80 degrees, very similar to Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, who have Sun-Mars 1/9, in other words, 40 degrees. So any of these multiples, especially of 40 degrees between Sun and Mars, are very strong. So I'm going to go to Hillary Clinton's 9th harmonic chart. I've got all these calculated. Go to the time adjust and just change it. Up here I can just change this. I'll just change this to 23, and I've got 23:40, the very end of the day. Click on Apply Time, and now I look at Sun and Mars, and we have Sun at 26.5 Cancer, Mars at early 9 Leo. That's 9 plus 4, 13. It's about 12.5 degrees. Well, 12.5 degrees is, it's there. It's not so weak. And in fact, at 11:40 p.m., she also ends up in the ninth harmonic chart with Moon trine Mars. That does give a little bit of the same flavor. I don't feel like it's quite as strong as the 8:30 time, but there's an outside chance she was born at the very, very end of the day, around 11:30 p.m. But more likely around 8:30 because it would make a stronger Sun-Moon-Mars connection. So we look at the chart at different times during the day to see if we can find some similarities. By the way, I know some of you have noticed in Hillary's ninth harmonic chart, I will cancel out of this time adjust. In her ninth harmonic chart, she has also the North Node and Pluto with Sun and Mars, and this gives the sense of mission and almost fate and destiny, which she pretty clearly has about becoming president. It is her time. It is time for a woman, and that woman is Hillary Clinton, to be president, and it's part of her fighting spirit. That even in one of the debates, Donald Trump gave her credit for that fighting spirit, Sun, Mars with the Pluto North Node. She has a sense of destiny, that this is meant to be. So, there's always a lot of things you can interpret in the chart. Okay, so that's my reason why I think Hillary was born around 8:40 a.m. Is because it makes this Sun-Moon-Mars connection in the ninth harmonic chart. Now, there is another thing that's interesting, and I mentioned this in another tutorial video, is that Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama all have Jupiter and Neptune aspected in the 11th harmonic chart, and they all have Jupiter and Neptune also aspecting a third planet. And both Bill Clinton and George W. Bush have a Mars-Jupiter-Neptune pattern. And Hillary has a Mars-Jupiter-Neptune pattern. So again, we see these extraordinarily similar patterns. I'll show this to you quickly. Here's Bill Clinton's 11th harmonic chart. Here's Mars, Jupiter, Neptune. Mars and Neptune are conjunct and opposition Jupiter. He has a Mars, Jupiter, Neptune. He also has the Sun making a T-square to these planets. He actually has a 4-planet pattern. And Saturn gets weakly involved. So there's the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune. Let's look at George W. Bush, 11th harmonic. He has Mars and Neptune, Jupiter and Neptune in this sesquiquadrat, 3/8 aspect. Mars right in the middle, you see the dashed lines. So Mars is conjunct the Jupiter-Neptune midpoint, and right in between them making these hard aspects. So he has a Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, just like Bill Clinton. It's rather extraordinary, the similarities. Now look at Hillary Clinton's 11th harmonic chart. This is for the time of 8:40 a.m. I'm thinking she's probably born within about a half hour of this 8:40 a.m. And amazingly, she has Mars, Jupiter, Neptune in a T-square. Here's Mars at 4 Taurus, Jupiter at 5 Leo, Neptune at almost 5 Aquarius. Very tight T-square of Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune. So 3 of these 2 former presidents, Clinton and Bush, have the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, and Hillary has it. Again, these similarities among people who are close associates, colleagues, friends, marriage partners. Similar patterns with similar meaning. What does this mean to have Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune in the 11th harmonic? It means you have big visions and dreams. You're shooting for the stars. You have this great vision. In this case, it's America, the eagle, flying around the world, bringing freedom and prosperity to everyone. It's this great vision just fantastically huge vision that you're going to accomplish this. And it also inclines you to overlook details, to be grandiose in your expectations and your idea of what's going on, and resulted in our foreign affairs blunders, where we go in and the United States goes in and with these military operations opens the door for people to become very upset with us and to get involved in terrorist groups. And it's not such a big, wonderful, great, simple thing as they think it will be. And that's a concern that we have if Hillary does become president, that she will continue with that great, exuberant, super positive optimism that we can go around the world and spread freedom and democracy very simply, and when it's not so simple, and there's a lot of destruction and a lot of details going on that are getting overlooked. Now, if we do the time adjust on this, and we see what's happening early in the morning or late at night, let's change the time to, just to do this quickly, I'll just change it to 0:40 a.m. and it was 12:40 a.m. And the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune is still there. It's weaker, but it's there. And if I go to the end of the day, 23:40, and click Apply Time, the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune is still there. It's gotten weaker. Mars is now up to almost 8 Taurus. By the middle of the next day, Mars will have moved out of orb. But at the time she's born, at 8:40 a.m., it's very, very strong, and it's in effect the whole day. So we're not able to use the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune to rectify the chart. If Mars had moved out of orb from this pattern, we would be fairly sure she must have the Mars, Jupiter, Neptune, because Bill Clinton has it and George W. Bush has it. So it only confirms that her date of birth is correct, October 26, 1947. Doesn't really help us with the rectification. But again, we see extremely similar patterns among people who are colleagues, friends, and associates who have similar behavior. All three have done similar things in their foreign affairs policy. Doesn't matter that one's a Republican, one's a Democrat, and supposedly they're very different. There's a very strong similarity that's shown astrologically. The Sun Mars with Moon is good for rectification and strongly suggests a time around 8:40. Not completely convincing, but I think pretty strong evidence she's born around 8:40. I won't be shocked, but I'll be surprised if we get her birth time and she's not born within a few hours of 8:40 a.m. So that's how we can look at charts using vibrational astrology, and in vibrational astrology we're able to see very specific things that bond people together, that make people friends, that make people have similar interests, to become close associates and colleagues, following a similar path in life. We're also able to see specific talents. I've rectified the charts of some athletes because the particular patterns that we've seen in other great athletes show up in the morning but not the afternoon, for example. I've done this with several charts. I haven't yet gotten the actual birth time. I'm trying to remember the name. Gabby Douglas, if I remember her name right, the gymnast. I looked at her chart. I think, if I remember right, I think I found that she must have been born in the morning when the 7th harmonic pattern is much stronger. I haven't yet gotten the birth information to confirm it, but we've done similar things with people who've later written to get their birth time from the hospital or government birth records office and confirmed that what we saw is correct. So that's my reason for feeling fairly strongly, but not 100% convinced, that Hillary Clinton is probably born around 8:40 in the morning, and I'll say within 2 hours of that. Not 100% sure, but I'm mostly sure of it. And this also helps you see how we analyze things using vibrational astrology and the incredible similarities that we find between different charts. Okay, thank you very much, my friends. Here I have a link to the Cosmic Pattern software that makes the Sirius software and the Kepler software, the YouTube channel page. Here's the website for our school, our online chart service, our other astrology software company, Matrix Software, and we have more free services at astrologyland.com. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.